This is the Cirrus SR-20 Generation 7, part of a lineup of the best-selling, high-performance, single-engine piston aircraft on the market today, and one of the reasons is because it might just be the safest aircraft that anyone can fly. But I want to know if that's really true, so I'm going to share with you everything you need to know about this aircraft, and we're going to put it to the test to find out if it's really safe. I'm Hoover, and welcome to Hoover's Hangar. In order to accomplish the mission, I needed to learn more about the aircraft, what it's capable of, the training and the cost required to fly it, and the safety features. And that's why I met up with my good friend Anthony, who is a Cirrus standardized instructor pilot, to learn more about it. But be sure to stick around for the test flight to judge for yourself if this really is the safest aircraft that anyone can fly. What are some of the big differences with this compared to some of the previous, generations of Cirrus aircraft?
So the evolution of avionics is the biggest thing, and some also design qualities that help reduce drag that Cirrus has done a great job over the last couple of generations of aircraft. It started off with, in the Garmin avionics, it started off with Perspective, which was in the Gen 3, Gen 5 models. The Perspective Plus came along in Gen 6. And now we have the Perspective Touch in this one, which makes it an easy transition to the VisionJet Perspective Touch. So that's what the transition was, to make it easy for someone to go from the SR-22 Gen 7 and fleet up to the VisionJet.
And what's the Perspective Touch all about?
Perspective Touch has a couple of screens that allow you to be able to manage the flight, the FMS, or the flight management system. Okay. And so while the Gen 6 versions has the keyboard and the FMS there, this has much less buttons. It's touch screen, but they're all embedded in the screens themselves. So digging out the same information takes a little bit of a learning curve, like I said, but it is logical. It's Garmin logical. So if you've flown GTN 650, 750, those type of airframes, it's even the Era 667, 60 type of handheld GPSs, the Garmin logic of where to find things, the icons are similar, and you can kind of maneuver around pretty good. And which, like I said, once you get used to it, it becomes more intuitive, and I actually like it better now that I've gotten used to it.
What are some of the things that you like about the design, the exterior of the aircraft, compared to other aircraft you've flown?
Well, it's a good-looking airplane. If you just look at the aesthetics of it.
It does look sharp.
It's nice, it's slick, it's not hard to slow down, but it's a very aerodynamic airplane as far as that goes. The design, I think Cirrus did very well designing it, and the upgrades they've made to it since the Gen 1. It sits a little higher with the gear. The wings are a little bit shaped differently with the different wing design, and so they've made a lot of great improvements to make it a joy of an airplane to fly, and the safest airplane, in my opinion, out there on the GA market.
Now, I noticed this one has a 3-blade prop. Mm-hmm. You have some with there's some Cirrus aircraft with 4-blade props. So what's the difference there?
Great. So all the SR-20s are going to probably have the 3-blade fin prop, if you will. There are some 3-blade. If you look around the hangar at some point, there's just some 3-blade fat props, we call them. Those are probably going to be turbo airplanes. So the turbo airplanes have either the 4-blade, kind of a skinny prop, or a 3-blade wider prop. And those wider props make a difference specifically in the flare characteristics of the airplane. When I first learned, I fly all variants of the airplane, all generations and all variants. Yeah. And so I have to be able to teach the person how to land the airplane in their airplane, regardless of which one it is. If I'm in a turbo airplane, the first turbo airplane I flew with the fat prop, I tried that same technique. It was over at my airport at Leeward at a grass strip, and we had basically pulled it back, and it just kind of settled in. It was kind of my first, not a hard landing, it was kind of a more firm than I wanted to with the pride factor. So I was like, wow, what happened? You pulled the power back too quick, and I'm like, oh, okay, why did that happen? That's when they introduced me to different size props make a difference in flare characteristics. So I'm like, okay, so every time I pre-flight the airplane, I think about my landing.
How does that compare to the F-15 landing?
Oh man, the F-15 I thought was one of the easiest planes to fly, quite honestly. As far as taking off and landing, I mean, you may disagree or agree with that, but when I went from the T-38 to the F-15, it was unbelievable how easy I thought it was to fly. The first landing was great, and I was like, are you kidding me? That's all it is? And
how does that feel, going from so fast, in an F-15 for your approach speeds to something this is doing, like about 85 knots on approach?
I think the approach speeds are so slow, but because we learned instruments at 300 knots in the T-38 and T-37, which I flew, and sometimes it was T-6s, some people flew too, but when you fleet to the 38, you're doing fast, you have to learn quick and think quick, and things seem to happen slower for me Not for new students who've never done instruments before, though. So I have to be careful and not.
I've had that same experience. It just sometimes feels like you're going a little too slow.
Yes.
At this point, it's worth mentioning that in addition to being a former F-15 pilot and now a Cirrus instructor, Anthony also flies for a major airline, and the two of us had a chance to do some tactical formation flying together in his CJ6 recently, which I shared on my channel. So be sure to watch that video if you haven't seen it yet. But I knew that based on his qualifications and his experience that he would be the right person to talk to about the SR-20. And now that we've learned more about the aircraft design, I asked Anthony about the performance and capability of the aircraft.
So performance-wise, this has a 215 horsepower IO390 Lycos. It's a four-cylinder, and it doesn't quite perform as well as the SR-22 does with the IO550, 350 horsepower, much bigger engine, same airframe, but bigger engine. So going from 22 to 20, you can tell a big difference in the power drop. As far as 172, it climbs as good as a 172 does with a couple of adult men flying it.
Is this the same engine that was on the SR-20 earlier generations?
I think there was a six-cylinder version of the SR-20, and I'm not sure what the model numbers were of those.
Right. You've got 4 seats. Can you really fit 4 adults in it? What's the useful load like of this aircraft?
It depends. So 3,150 is max gross weight on this one. 3,400 for some of the SR-22s, 3,600 for Gen 6 SR-22. And I can double check those numbers. I'm pretty sure those are correct. 3,150 on this one, definitely. And so with the gas on board, you can fit three adults in there with some gas. Once you get multiple bags or 4 adults, it becomes a weight balance issue.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people talk about 4-seat aircraft, but you got to take those things into consideration. What do you see people ideally using this aircraft for?
This is mainly a short distance cross country machine, or it's a great trainer for the Cirrus market. I mean, Cirrus needed an entry-level airplane to train up all their SR-22 owners. This is a great transition to that. We've tried to train up new owners in their SR-22. It's a lot of airplane going from off the street to an SR-22 with all the engine torque. The speeds are more, so this damps it down a little bit, so speeds are not quite as fast, torque is not quite as much to handle, and it's a much better transition to the SR-22. With the new owners, we recommend, hey, let's get you checked out in the 22 first, then we'll fleet you up to the 22. It's a much easier transition. We've done that several times.
Sure. And you're down here flying in Florida where density altitude isn't necessarily a factor. You're not worrying about mountain flying. How does this aircraft handle out west or in some of those environments?
Well, it's limited in some of the higher altitude regimes. So you made it into SR-22 and turbos in some cases if you're really out in the mountains operating off high altitudes all the time. When density altitude becomes an issue, icing can become an issue. Slick wing on this one, there's no Ficky model. There's no Ficky version.
So you can't fly into icing.
Correct. It's do not touch icing.
And what sort of altitudes are you typically cruising at for a cross-country flight in this aircraft?
Depends on the altitude. If we're going less than 200 miles, probably 55 to 65. If we're going more than 200 miles, I'd put up to 80, 85, 95, or 8, 9,000. 10.5 is okay, 11,000 is okay. But now you're getting up into the oxygen realm, so we kind of stay below 10.
Right, and is the cabin pressurized?
Not pressurized. No.
Okay. So what kind of range does the aircraft have?
Pretty good range. It varies depending on the fuel load, but it's 450 is a good cross-country range. Anything more than that, you're going to need to do some gas computations, wind computations, and maybe plan for a fuel stop. So 450, 500 is easy.
Okay. And what's the fuel burn rate like for typical cross-country?
So for this one, you can bring it down to right at 11 or so, 11 and a half on the fuel burn. It's pretty good.
Gallons per hour?
Gallons per hour, correct, yeah. And then the SR-22, not much further than that, about 13 if you're running lean to peak going cross country. So it's not very economical when you think about the cruise speed. Gen 7 has done Cirrus has done a lot of good modification of the Gen 7, specifically the wheel pants. They've actually covered some of the surface area that was around the wheel to allow for the airflow to go more freely past with less drag. So they reduced the drag in a few areas. And this actually airplane cruises a lot faster than our other SR-20s do, the Gen 6s.
When we talk about cruising cross-country, what sort of speeds are we cruising at?
We were getting in the low 150s through in this one, which we were surprised. Now, it was wintertime, we were cruising well, and that's not ground speed with winds, that's true airspeed you were getting up there, so we were happy and we were only cruising at, I think it was about probably 7,500 feet at that time from the back.
And how big of a runway do you need for the aircraft?
Great question. Only a couple thousand feet, really, based if you look at takeoff and landing distance. But yeah, I would say 3,000. I've landed these at Cedar Key, no problem. So whatever that at 20, I did the research, 22
Well,
feet.
what's your normal takeoff roll in this?
You're looking at about 1,500 feet in this one. In a day like today, roughly with 2 people. If you're an SR-22, it's really down to around 1,000 feet.
And then stopping distance?
Stopping distance, probably a couple thousand feet in general is kind of a normal stopping distance.
Okay, I have to pause for a second because in full transparency, you need to know that the SR-20 is sometimes referred to as the underpowered death trap. That's because some people might say that the 215 horsepower engine is small relative to the aircraft max gross weight, and the aircraft has a slow rate of climb. But I'd argue that it all depends on where and how you're using the aircraft. Now, I'll admit that it's not the best option if you need to carry 4 adults or if you're operating in a high density altitude environment, but that doesn't mean it's a death trap. In fact, I think a lot of that boils down to the training and the aeronautical decision making of the pilot. And speaking of that, now that we've learned about the aircraft performance, it's time to talk about the training and the cost.
And how's the training like for somebody that's, thinking about transitioning to the aircraft? Is it pretty robust? I know for the Vision Jet, you got to go get a type rating.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about this.
You bet. So it depends on where they're coming from, but the transition is really about the same. The VFR transition is about 5 rides, if you will, with one being active. One ride of academics is kind of 5 flights is generally the flow. And if they're doing the IFR add-on as well, another 3 to 4 flights, depending on the proficiency and how well they're picking up the Garmin systems. If they're not used to Garmin, they take an extra flight or so, but if they know the Garmin logic, it helps. So it's 5 to 10 rides, depending on if it's a VFR, IFR transition. That's typically what we see.
And then do they have to do that at a Cirrus training center? I know you have an opinion on this, so yeah. I'd love to hear it.
So obviously they can get their training wherever they can get training. However, I recommend the Cirrus Training Center. Cirrus definitely recommends the Cirrus Training Centers. And the reason is you get the standardization of training. I fly for an airline and our videos are great. These are on par, in some cases better than the videos that we see at our airlines. But not just that, anybody can buy the videos. Going to Cirrus Training Center, you're actually learning standardized ways of doing it, building those habit patterns that are going to save you, months down the road. If you haven't flown in a few weeks, you kind of revert back to habit patterns when things go awry. We build those correct habit patterns if it's a Cirrus Training Center.
When it comes to training, what sort of hours would you recommend somebody at least have in terms of, flight experience before transition to this? Or is it something I can go straight from, I just got my private pilot in a 172 and I'm ready to hop in an SR-20?
We've taken them from 0 all the way through the training program, the SR-20.
So guys have gotten their private pilot in this too.
Absolutely, and that's all they've flown is the 20s. And then we can fleet them up to the 22s if they want to take it cross country. It does take a little bit longer, I would say, than starting in a Cessna, but it depends on how fast the student is grasping the data. Younger students tend to bring on information quicker. They tend to get used to those touchscreens quicker. They get used to all the information. They can access it quicker than I could when I first jumped in the airplane and train myself transitioning to the Cirrus. It was quicker for them to pick up because they're used to that type of interface. But we have an 18-year-old that went through the entire program at the same pace or faster than some of our Cessna students because he was just on it and studied really hard and did well.
But what does it cost for somebody that wants to maybe get buy an aircraft? I know you talk to a sales rep, but in general, what can people expect?
So the SR-20s or SR-22s or both?
The Gen 7.
The Gen 7
yeah.
20s run around 700,000 roughly as of today's date, roughly. Okay. And then the SR-22s, Gen 7s, run around 1.1 or so, depending on the features, plus or minus a little bit, depending on the features. Okay. And so it's a couple-year waiting list, so it's a 10% down. And then you wait a couple of years, and then you get to pick your colors and all the accoutrements, and then you pay up at the end, and the price may have increased a little bit along the way.
What would an average cost per hour in terms of operating? Like if I go buy one of these aircraft, let's say I had 700,000, which would be nice, and go buy one of these aircraft, what should I expect? I've got my fuel costs.
Sure.
I've got my maintenance costs, right? And then I've got to set money aside, right, for engine replacement and other things like that.
So operating costs, maintenance, engine replacement of 90,000 or so in this particular one, that you're looking at around, cost-wise, probably $250 an hour cost to operate the airplane.
Okay.
Just basic cost.
And then you got to add in insurance, right?
Correct.
And then hangar.
Hangar, if you have to pay for hangar, that's all on top. That's correct. And insurance is a shocker as well on a brand new, it depends on the insurance brokers that you go to, but If you're the kicker is what qualifications do you have in the airplane, and if you're not instrument rated, your insurance is going to be about double than what it'll be once you get your instrument rating. That seems to be an insurance kind of cutoff on price changes, and it cuts it about in half, or at least 40% or so. So a new airplane owner may be looking at a $27,000 a year, brand new airplane, $1 million hull coverage, that type. But if you get your instrument rating down to now to 13 to 15,000 range, a little more palatable for brand new.
All right, when it comes to the SR20, let me just say that if you're not shopping around for your insurance, then you might be paying more than you need to, and that's why I recommend Avemco. They've been a partner with me since day one, and they specialize in insurance products for pilots like you and me. And I think the best part is that unlike most insurance companies, they work directly with pilots, so you're not going through a middleman. You're actually talking to aviation insurance specialists who understand how and why we fly, and they've been doing this for decades. So whether you're a brand new pilot or you have thousands of hours, Avemco can tailor a policy to fit your needs, including options for renter's insurance, which is something that I have with them right now. So be sure to check them out using one of the QR codes on the screen or the link in the video description below. Now that being said, when it comes to the SR20, I like how it's possible to get your private pilot certificate doing all of your flight training in a Cirrus. But the cost to do so is probably more than what most new pilots can actually afford. However, if you go that route, I really like how Cirrus has some of the best training resources in the industry, and they're committed to keeping pilots safe. The reason that's so important is because from what I've seen on my other YouTube channel, there tends to be a high correlation between Cirrus plane crashes and pilots that didn't get their training from a Cirrus training center, or they didn't take the time to do the free training that Cirrus offers. So if this is an aircraft that you're thinking about buying, then I highly recommend you get the proper training and use the tools and the resources that Cirrus provides to help you stay safe. And now let's talk about some of the safety features on the aircraft.
Let's talk about stall characteristics and what's going to prevent somebody from, stalling in the traffic pattern or getting in a bad situation like that.
Good. This Garmin has created a great thing called electronic stability protection, and a lot of airplanes have it, even besides the Cirrus, has that functionality, and it's incorporated in our Perspective Touch in this one as well as Perfector Plus. That is a phenomenal design that will keep you from really stalling the airplane or wherever you're at. The airplane will begin to recover if that function is turned on before you actually stall. It won't allow you to, it'll start fighting you to not let you stall. So it's a very good safety feature, and it prevents the death spirals with the weather if you lose situational awareness and you lose your directional control.
So it'll level the aircraft out?
It will. Okay. And so we'll go fly later and kind of show you the functionality of that. But if you're more than a bank angle for a certain amount of minutes and it's fighting you for more than a certain amount of time, I think it's 20 out of the last 40 seconds was a logic previous, and they may have changed it, but some amount of time, if you're fighting it, it says, okay, I'm taking over, and the autopilot comes on, levels the wings, levels the airplane, and it brings you back to safety.
Is that unique to the Gen 7, or is that on all?
It's not. That is actually unique to just the Garmin electronic stability protection, all those. With that GFC 500, 600, 700 autopilot, that feature will automatically be installed.
And then how does the aircraft handle in slow speed regimes?
It's really good. We turn off that function for our slow speed training and stalls. It's got a very docile stall characteristics. You really have to get for a power off stall, for instance. We'll show this later, but you have to get the nose 5 to 7 degrees nose high to allow the nose to actually drop. If you kind of hold level and try to stall it, even with the ESP off, it's just kind of mush and you don't get a nice stall break. And you feel the buffet, but it doesn't really kind of stall. So
you'll
really
be able
docile.
So you can feel the aircraft, the vibrations of the aircraft as you're approaching that stall speed. Are you going to get a stick shaker, a horn, different warnings?
Great question. So the Gen 6, you'll get the standard stall warning will come on audible, stall, and then you'll get the buffet, and then the stall will occur. That's the 3, leading up stall indications, impending stall indications. In this airplane, you have the added stick shaker in the Gen 7, which is really neat when you feel that. And hopefully we get to feel that today. But as you stall the airplane, when you hear the stall, simultaneously the stick shaker will start buzzing and remind you. And actually, if the ESP is on, we'll push the nose down. If not, it'll buzz and urge you to get the nose down to prevent the stall.
Probably one of the safest features on the aircraft, I think. Mm-hmm. I'm flying along, something happens to me, and I die, heart attack.
Sure.
What's my wife gonna do?
She's got the Cirrus airplane parachute system. So the caps is the feature that is really a seller for Cirrus because it sells the wives and the families, and it in turn sells the pilots that are buying them, or the husbands that are buying them. So it's extremely safe, and when it's been used in the envelope has been 100% effective. So the peace of mind, I learned the peace of mind of this as I got into the Cirrus. I was a Bonanza owner and a Cessna owner, so I didn't really think much about it. It was just kind of an accoutrement, okay, whatever, the parachute. But now, as I'm thinking about taking my family over the Appalachians and the Carolinas or Eastern Kentucky or wherever, now I'm like, okay, peace of mind at night is great, because I know if something happens, I'm going to be able to walk away and give this thing back to the insurance company and get another one eventually.
You have to be in a certain envelope, airspeed to use it, and then how does it work?
You bet. 500 or 600 AGL is the minimums depending on the variant. It could be 5 AGL or 600 AGL. So we'll just say 600 AGL for just conservative purposes is what you need.
Above ground level.
Above 600, above the ground is the minimum for the actual parachute to come out, activate. It kind of pitches up, it pitches down, and it sets you at about a 10-degree nose-low angle as you're coming down. And so you have to have time for it to pitch up, pitch down, and swing, and that's about 600 feet before it kind of pancakes in. But the seats are crushable, and the gear is kind of crushable in a designed way that makes it palatable for no injuries when you actually exit, which is great.
Okay.
It's kind of like jumping off a 10-foot backboard, kind of falling down at that type of a pace.
And in the Eagle, you have the ejection seat. So this
Yes.
is essentially like your ejection seat. So if you're on, taking off, engine failure, low altitude, very congested area, you've got an option, right?
You do, right. And if there's time to maneuver away from the neighborhood into a field, sure, make one last ditch effort. Definitely don't want to violate the 600 AGL rule, whatever the airframe limits were, and be able to pull the chute prior to reaching that level.
Right, but guys,
higher is better.
Yeah,
higher is better.
But guys don't need to try the impossible turn.
Absolutely not. Not on this airplane. Do not need to.
Yeah.
We brief that you need above 2,000 above ground level before you consider what are my options for potentially landing it somewhere, or crossing runway, or pitching back.
Yeah.
It's about 2,000 AGL. So between 600 AGL and 2,000 AGL, that is the pull caps now type of altitudes.
What's one of the biggest mistakes you see for a new Cirrus owner? We talked about some of the budgeting concerns, that for somebody that's not familiar with the aircraft and getting into general aviation, but are there other mistakes that you see a lot of times that's very common?
I think the most common assumption is that they'll be able to jump in and fly it and get used to it quickly. If they're not a previous Cirrus owner, they think they're going to come in and really get used to these avionics and used to how the airplane flies, used to the speed and the pace of this airplane can be different. The sight pictures are different as well, because the flaps actually raise the tail a little bit more than a Cessna, for instance. So your pitch down final is a couple more degrees nose low than a Cessna would be on that 3-degree glide path.
Okay.
So all those things are different, and it's the learning curve. And I think it takes owners and new Cirrus pilots, it's kind of a wake up to how complex it can be.
Yeah.
But when they learn it and they get it and they follow the habit patterns and the flows that we teach them that kind of makes it standard, they really learn to appreciate it's a very reliable and great airplane to learn.
Yeah, it's really neat. There's a lot of really cool features about this aircraft that are ultimately designed to keep the pilots safe, and then, like you said, provide that peace of mind to their family or whoever might be traveling with them. You think we can take a look inside and maybe go for a flight?
So you look inside, go fly.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome.
All right, that was a really good breakdown of the aircraft, what it's capable of, the training, the cost, and also the incredible safety features that it offers. But now it's time to put it to the test, and in order to do that, I've decided to break things down by phase of flight, just like I would for a fighter pilot debrief. So we're going to start with the pre-flight and the engine start.
That's right. The only thing to remember is 3 switches on. BAT 2, BAT 1 strobe, and that fires up everything. You just have to find the checklist in the Gen 7, which is different than the Gen 6. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences as we go along, but checklist comes up. There's this little scroll wheel right here that's kind of handy to use. You can actually just kind of scroll down and kind of select the items that you're looking at.
Okay, so those aren't, it's not touch screen.
It's not, that's correct. It's not touch screen. And before engine starts, where we want to be at. And the first one was pre-flight inspection. It's complete. We just did that. Passengers have been briefed, walk around here, and I've got actually a briefing screen I'll brief you on a little bit later in the initialization process. It talks about the whole safety features there.
By the way, as Anthony was walking me through the checklist, I just want to say that I really liked how it was integrated into the display, and you can check off each item as you go through the checklist. I mean, how many times have you accidentally skipped over something on a paper checklist and you didn't realize it until later on? The way they have this integrated, it essentially helps prevent those kind of mistakes, but I also think it gives your passengers peace of mind, because even if they don't know anything about flying, they can watch you following the steps on the checklist, which is going to make them feel more confident when they fly with you.
And I have a tendency to talk fast, so please slow me down if I talk too fast for camera. Some people like it, some people don't. Clear prop! And I'm holding the mixture out here. Clear prop! When it starts, bringing the mixture slowly to rich. Right there. Smoothly back to about 1500 RPM so it doesn't die. I'm going to shut my door.
Do you feel like, guys, there's like an adjustment process to using an electronic checklist?
There is. They get used to it. The key is not getting heads down when you're not supposed to, like in taxi and or climbing out a traffic pattern. You want to get heads down on that checklist. We guard against those aspects. Fuel prop is off. All switches are on. Its parameters are checked. Avionics initialization. Here's where the Gen 7 is different than the Gen 6. And this avionics initialization here. And so I'm going to check my databases, kind of scroll down, they're all good. Check mark next means that it goes on to the next checklist. It shows me my limitations. Normal kind of get an airplane to aerobatic maneuvers, and that's the limitation of the airplane. So I'm going to acknowledge that image right here. I have to acknowledge it to actually get to go. So acknowledge it, it goes to the next one, passenger briefing. Seatbelt safety harness is good. Emergency egress, you've already covered a little bit.
This was another feature of the aircraft that I really liked, because you've essentially got a passenger safety briefing checklist. And the two most important items on that list are the level button and the CAPS briefing, because there really isn't any point in having these advanced safety features if the passenger doesn't know how to use them if something were to happen to you.
If I'm in capacity for some reason, the engine failure, and you can't bring the aircraft back, and you shouldn't because you're not trained in the aircraft yet, the easiest thing to do is think blue, red, red. The blue level button brings the autopilot on, puts you in level flight, red mixture knob to off, the red caps handle pull, about 45 pounds, kind of like doing a chin up, comes out about 8 inches there, and it actually deploys the cap system. Then, basically...
Yeah, so we talked about this earlier, but I mean, for somebody that's maybe flying with their family, I think, in my opinion, it gives a great amount of comfort to that person that's not a pilot to know that, hey, if you become incapacitated for any reason, I can at least get us safely on the ground. It might be under a parachute, but we're going to be safely on the ground, or at least drastically reduce the odds that we're going to wind up as a fatality.
Cleared Alpha 11.
All right, let's stop right here and continue on with the checklist. All right, back and acknowledge the image. Our safety briefing is complete, so I can acknowledge that image. I'm safe, you're safe, feel pretty good to go fly today. Acknowledge this one. That brings us to the next page there. Check arrow means the next initialization page. Here's initial fuel, 26 plus 26. And I'm going to 52, so normally we'd hit fob sync, but there he goes, 55, it came alive. So we have a slosh around a little bit, it came alive. So now all I have to do is hit fob sync, fuel on board, and it syncs into whatever the size sensors actually, really accurate sensors the aircraft has. Okay. Get to wait fuel, look at this, takeoff distance here, loading is good, aircraft loading, pilot, 175, are you 165?
165.
That checks, actually looks pretty good. Also a change right here.
Don't tell anybody.
I changed this, I'll put 170 on mine.
So I like this too, the visual depiction of your weight, balance, center of gravity, all that stuff. So many pilots overlook such, it's like the little simple things that are going to get you killed.
Runway, I'm going to put runway 18, which we're on.
You can taxi in via
And then go back to my NIT page, and it looks like everything is done. Takeoff data, there we go. Runway 18, runway 36, runway required. Look at this right here. Takeoff distance ground, 1470. I'm just going to type that number right there, 1470. It knows my weight, knows my balances because I put everything in there. Pretty neat to be able to show that in there, and it's all accurate.
So it's calculating that for you.
It did.
Based off of the weight, balance, and the fuel and everything else.
Correct.
For your performance. Now, will it automatically adjust as well, like for density, altitude?
Great question. I have to go back and research that and see.
Because obviously, fly around here.
Well, it does, because look, it's got ISO 12 here, so I would say yes, it does.
Okay, I see it's calculating that. And obviously you're flying around here in Florida, not as much of a factor. Obviously, you do have some very hot summer days here, hot, humid days, but not the same as, flying hot out of, Colorado.
That's right. That's the initialization phase of the Gen 7. Now I'm right back on my checklist. Cap's pin is removed and stowed. External power is disconnected. Flaps are in fact up, indicating up. Flap indicator there. Comm nav GPS. I'm going to go ahead and select my ATIS here and listen to the ATIS.
Okay, I realize this might seem like a lot to take in, and Anthony does talk fast, but once again, everything he is doing is all in accordance with the checklist that he's referencing for after engine start and before taxi. Now, that doesn't mean you need an electronic checklist to be safe. I just want to make that clear, because it all boils down to cockpit discipline. Even though it's a lot of fun to go flying, you need to have the right mentality and stay disciplined if you want to stay safe.
I'm ready to taxi at this point. I'll call ground, ready to go.
Call ground, Cirrus 306 Lima Mike at PRP taxi with India. We'll be moving forward to the northwest.
Runway 306 Lima Mike, Ocala ground, roger, taxi runway 18 V Alpha 12 and Alpha.
Alpha 12 Alpha to 18 for 306 Lima Mike.
Alright, clear right, clear left, look good. My brakes are good. If I can check yours, you can. Did you reach them there? They're good. Alright. This airplane, as far as taxiing, is brakes only. So differential braking. I could use the rudders right now all day long and it doesn't really change anything, just the minor airflow going over it from the prop wash.
Okay.
One of the things to caution against with students is, one, riding the brakes as they're taxiing out. So you want to caution against that. 1,000 RPM should work pretty good once the engine's nice and warmed up. Even 900 sometimes works. We kind of keep an eye on it. And then just kind of tap the brake, kind of like the Airbus 350, kind of speed up a little bit, tap them. We also teach not to taxi off on Alpha 10 here, to always taxi on Alpha 6, and it works if you're coming from the north, taxiing off here at Alpha 10, so we're not trying to turn off early, which sometimes Tower asks us to do.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a nice long runway here, and the thing that you see sometimes is people want to try to use as little of it as possible, and it's like, you know, you use the amount of runway that you need.
Right.
How do you like the display management and the avionics setup compared to the Eagle?
Oh, the Eagle. Well, as you know, the Eagles that I flew were more round dials than your Eagle that you flew. But still, we kind of flew round dial Eagles back in the day.
Yeah.
And as far as how we process information as pilots, I think it's the same. We take various components of information from the cockpit, we compile it in our brains, we transfer that to our hands and feet, and we make the airplane do what we think the visual sight pictures to do for that scenario.
Yeah. Well, I think Cirrus is taking a lot of things into consideration, trying to simplify the workload for the pilot. You know,
they did, and I think Gen 7 was a great leap. It takes a little training to get used to it, but not that much, because it's Garmin logic, and once you've flown Garmin enough, you kind of understand the logic behind it. And some of the hidden screens, like I said, are just located elsewhere. Like, for instance, the Gen 3 that you have flown had the FMS knob that you use to kind of scroll around and hit the enter button and change destinations with a keypad. There's no keypad here.
Right.
It's hidden in here. It's not really overt there with your QWERTY keypad. So that's one thing to get used to, is how to dig and find the information. And then where your screens are is another thing. So kind of rule of thumb we have is blue left, and that's kind of where we keep the blue. I can actually change it to the right and change the screen over there when I want to. And I'll change that when I get to the run-up area.
Remind me, what does that do again?
So this FMS knob here changes where my blue outline is. Okay. So when I get the run-up over here, I'm going to change this to a systems screen so I can do the run-up and check my systems.
So you're basically, it's a display management thing. Like, correct. I can control whatever is selected in blue.
This selects, correct. Okay. MFW1,
gotcha.
MFW2. This is, again, PFD with a PFW1, PFD window 1 here, and an MFW1, MFW2 is kind of what this is.
Okay.
I'm in tower land. I'm going to go and switch to tower as the active frequency. Myself set up so I don't blast the people behind us.
2541 Ocala Tower, report 4 miles.
I got a note that I have a little bit of right crossing on takeoff, so I'll try not to forget that as I continue on. Alright, gonna set the parking brake for some insurance. Park takeoff checklist. Doors are latched. Go push on the top of that real quick. It's good. Line's good as well, and it's latched down. Center console switch panel is set. Looking at my air conditioner, I'm just going to turn the recirc fan off now so I don't forget it. Full cold AC is fine. Air conditioner recirc disabled is right there. Fuel quantity confirm. 22, 27 looks good. 55 is good. Fuel sector fullest tank. I'm going to keep it on the right tank. Looks good to me there. And let's see, close cover for automatic operations. This is kind of a cool in the Gen 7 as well. You close this, it goes from manual to automatic fuel switching now. I don't have to switch it every 15 minutes.
So you don't have to worry about balancing.
Every 5 gallons, it automatically switches over, which is kind of nice. Okay. Once the fuel cover is closed, like it is now. All right, fuel pump is on for the run-up. Mixture is going to full rich. Flaps 50% and check. The and check portion is I'm looking at my aileron. They should match the flap on both sides. Make sure they're symmetric. Brakes hold. Power lever is 2200 RPM. I'm going to fast forward through this run-up checklist, and I'm going to actually execute it. Pretty standard run up with magnetos and your electrical system as well. I'm going to pause at 1,000 RPM. Now I'm going to set my screen here for the run up. So for this one, I'm going to select aircraft systems, and I like the electrical power page pulled up right here. We're toying with the option, I'm going to do it for this one, is to put the engine page on this one, aircraft systems, and engine and fuel. I can have both of these up doing the run up as well. Okay. So I'm going to do the run up in this case today, because the other day we counted number 3 cylinder was a little bit, we're just kind of fluctuating a little bit. So, all right, clear behind us, 2,200 RPM is coming in. RPM is right there on the right.
As Anthony was going through the before takeoff checklist, I just want to say that I felt really comfortable in this aircraft because advanced avionics and automation is what I've been used to from the airlines. However, that doesn't mean that pilots should rely on that to keep them safe. And you definitely shouldn't take on more risk thinking that the aircraft is going to save you. Either way, we were finished with the ground ops and ready to take off to see how the aircraft handles.
Trim set for takeoff, and it is. No cast messages. We're good. All right, normal takeoff. We're going to rotate 71, flaps up at 85. Anything happens on the ground, we're going to taxi clear. Anything happens below 600, we're going to land within the confines of the window. Anything between 600 and 2100, we're going to pull caps immediately. If we're above 2100, then we're going to troubleshoot, maybe make it back, and then if not, we'll pull caps.
Okay.
Questions on that?
No questions.
Good. No short field takeoff. I'll leave this on the climb checklist, and then I will go to PFW, make this full screen. Here's our takeoff. Full screen map. I'm going to zoom out now a little bit. Make sure I can see the class Delta on tower, and I'm all set to go.
Perfect.
South Tower, Sierra 306 Lima Mike, number 118.
Final
206 Lima Mike, runway 18, clear for takeoff, proceed on course.
18 clip takeoff on course northwest for 306 Lima Mike.
All right, the final check that we do. Sorry, you had a question?
No, I was going to say, clear for takeoff. I see 18.
Excellent. Very good. 18 is good, and then also we do final, fuel, flaps, maps, and caps. So final's clear.
Yep.
Fuel system, I got my boost pump is on for takeoff. The cover is closed here on the fullest tank. Mixture is rich. Flaps are at 50. Maps are zoomed out, and my caps pin is pulled. The final check is kind of the save your bacon check. I know we got winds coming from the right here, so we got a little bit of right wind.
Affirmative, full stop, taxi back.
Off the brakes, let the rotors do their thing. Tube 3, full power.
Random 1.
So my center line, which looks good. Nice little crosswind. 71, I'm going to start backseat pressure at 68. There it is, let it come nicely off the ground. Grab it into the wind, keeping the nice rudder in there, trying to fly down those goal posts at the end of the runway. About 5 degrees nose high allows me to accelerate to that flaps at a speed of 85. So I'm trying to keep that 85. There it is. Flaps coming up. I'm gonna climb at 96 initially. It's my best rate of climb, at least through caps altitude. That gets me safely through caps.
Yeah. Get yourself to that safe altitude to give yourself those options.
Altitude's good. Clear right. Coming right.
Clear right.
Clear me on course. The flight controls in this for a new student depends on where they're coming from. If they're basic, caps available. If they're a basic student that's never flown,
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt that.
It's okay, go ahead.
I like that because I've heard that in the other Cirrus aircraft. It tells you at 600, so you immediately know where you're at for your caps.
We're sitting here in the northwest here, the practice area, kind of hang out between here and Williston. A normal practice area, a little slope, it's north of 96. Now above 1,000 feet. Kind of above pattern altitude, 1,100 feet pattern altitude. So above that, I'll go ahead and accelerate to 105 for the climb. It helps for engine cooling. A little bit easier on the cylinders as we're climbing up there. At any point, Hoover, I'll let you go ahead and take the stick and fly if you'd like.
Yeah.
Climb out or in the area.
Absolutely.
All right, if you want to go take the stick, a little bit on the right rudder if you would.
Frequency change approved. If you want flight following,
just a little bit.
No worries, take care.
Okay, you're fine. So we'll call you back in a bit. Thanks.
All right.
All right, a little right rudder, you're on it, and your flight controls.
My flight controls.
Your flight control, looking good. 2,500 feet, it'll ding at us when we get 1,000 feet to go. You'll see that, and looking nice outside. There's your kind of a climb picture, kind of a Coke can on the nose type of sight
you
picture
get your
there.
typical Florida afternoon showers.
That's right. That's right. We'll zoom out and see if those actually come up. I found that getting used to these flight controls, it's a little more sensitive in pitch than it is in roll, which we'll find out as we do some turns. which is not much to get used to as an experienced pilot. So as you're teaching new pilots how to land, specifically the flare and the ground effect, it can get really pitchy there at the end. So it's a little bit more, less stick pressures in that flare to kind of get the nose 5 degrees nose higher so for the flare.
Now talk to me about what we're seeing here on the display.
That's our glide ring. So based on a glide speed of 92 to 100 is the glide speed. So mid gross weight, which is what we are, about 96 is our best glide speed.
Yeah.
That's going to give us basically how far we can make it. Not very far as of right now. As you get to 2500, you can ease back the power to about 65% will be good for us to do some clearing turns. One thing to get used to this is that how far back you have to pull the throttle to get to 65. It's not linear.
That's a lot of throttle movement.
It takes a few rides to get used to that.
You get a little nervous when you start pulling and nothing's happening.
That's right. 65 is perfect. We'll level off. We do have, well, we added the Eagle, which is that velocity vector, or we call it flight path marker here. So that's really good to put on the horizon for trim flight. And it helps you kind of build what level sight picture looks like. And there's your level sight picture right there. That's actually smoke. That's why it's not coming up. There's a fire out there. All right, very good. So the trim button is just like on the Eagle there. If you can go ahead and just trim all those pressures off. Look quick, hands off field. Trims up nicely, both aileron and elevator. And really trims up nice.
I remember in the Eagle, you know, you'd use a couple of nose down clicks after you raise the gear, and then you wouldn't touch it.
And it was auto trim after that. You bet.
1A, thank you for 541.
All right, we do it 90 left and 90 right for just some clearing turns. Let people know that we're out here. I don't see any traffic in the area.
Clear left?
Clear left.
Do you have to add much power with the turn?
Not in these little turns. We'll do a steep turn in a little bit. I'll let you feel the electronic stability kind of kick in and fight you. I'll let you fight the first little bit of it. The ESP I'm really a fan of because it's one of those you get stuck in the weather and it prevents you from getting into that death spiral. It's a really nice feature. All right, very good. So the electronic stability protection, I can fly this and talk through it. I'll let you fly it and talk you through it. What you prefer?
Yeah, I'll keep flying.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm good with this.
So,
This is a lot of fun.
It is, yeah.
I like it.
So look at the double hash mark on our 45-degree turn right here. That lets you know your ESP is on, all right? So I'm going to have you start at a left-hand 45-degree bank turn, so all the way to 45 degrees.
All the way to limit.
And as soon all the way to 45.
Right,
and as
clear
soon,
left.
Clear left, you're looking good. And then when you get past about 35 degrees, you're going to feel it start to fight you a little bit.
Okay.
And it's going to start trying to direct you to go, so go all the way to 45. You can, all the way, there it is right there. Fight it, try to stay at 45, and try to keep it and try to fight it. And what you're doing is you're fighting the system that's trying to get you less than 45 degrees of bank, a little bit more. There it is. Fight it, keep holding it, good. Keep holding it, 45, keep going. Because your line shifted to 30 on you. That's what's happened. It's trying to force you back to 30. Hold it. Keep fighting it. The logic is, if you fight it for more than 20 out of the last 40 seconds, the autopilot's going to come on, which is going to in just a minute. When it says engaging autopilot, just release.
Autopilot.
Okay.
It's going to go level with the wings, and that's the save your bacon if you're in the weather type thing.
That's awesome.
It's a really neat feature.
Yeah, I've talked about so many mishaps where pilots get themselves disoriented in the weather, you know, VFR and IMC, or even guys that have an instrument rating, and they, you know, they just don't have enough practice. And now the next thing you know, like senses, you know, get discombobulated, they start themselves in a turn. Hey, it's telling you, let go, and I got it for you. Here we are, autopilot level. I'm gonna pull the power back a little bit.
Recaging our brain to what level feels like now. We can actually get it over. It's really neat.
Awesome.
To turn the autopilot off, you go ahead and hit the red button there if you'd like. And go ahead and give us a 180 to the left again is fine. And I'm going to turn off the ESP if you like, and then we'll go from there. Oops, back here to utilities.
Yeah, and it gives you the little warning too that the autopilot's coming off, so you got that nice audible, and I saw it flashing yellow as well.
Good.
Well, what's interesting to me is, I haven't really touched the power much. In fact, we're back at 55% now, and even with some of these steep turns, everything's holding normal. It's not like, sometimes you have to add a little bit of power in the turn.
Right. It's a pretty slick airplane. The Gen 7 specifically has added some extra drag lessening features, drag reduction features, I should say, and then it actually gets pretty good airspeed.
Yeah, and back here in this power range where the throttle's at right now, it's really not taking much, whereas at that initial power reduction, it took quite a bit of throttle movement, like you're saying, so it's not linear.
All right, I'm sure it was pretty obvious that I was having a lot of fun flying the SR-20. I thought it was very easy to fly and it handled really well. Now, I realize some pilots have never flown with a side stick, and that's something that's unique to Cirrus aircraft, but I don't think it's a big deal to get used to, even if you're in the left seat and you have to use your left hand to fly. Now, just to be perfectly clear, the ESP, or Electronic Stability Protection, that we just demonstrated isn't unique to Cirrus. That's associated with Garmin, but it's still a great feature to have to help you stay safe and avoid spatial disorientation. And now that we've taken a look at that, it was time to put the aircraft through a series of stalls.
So talk to me about stall characteristics and stall protection.
Love it.
Because somebody inadvertently gets themselves in a situation where they're too slow or pulling back on the stick too hard. You know.
That's great. Well, with that, I'm going to turn ESP back on because it's a really safe feature if we're going to do that, to show you what the airplane will save you from getting into a stall.
Okay.
Now, if you want to actually practice feel stall characteristics, we can do one without ESP first to feel it.
Okay.
And then we can turn it back on.
Sure.
Later on. So let's go ahead and make a right turn to south is good. So right where the bug is pretty good there.
Okay.
Since you're heading about to south, it should keep us out of the smoke and clear traffic, looking good.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nobody else out here.
2,500 feet, we're looking pretty good here. We'll go ahead and start setting up kind of like a pattern. Bring the power back to 50% on the power. Kind of talk you through kind of how we do the pattern. We set up these stalls like a pattern. And then we're going to go ahead and get a notch of flaps in. Before you hit the flaps, I'm going to show you the technique on how not to balloon this airplane with flaps, okay?
Sure.
It's got a really violent balloon. Not violent, but aggressive.
Yeah.
So lock your elbow into that armrest.
Yep.
And then put your hand so that the yoke can't push your hand back, okay? And now reach down and put the flaps to 50, but don't let the yoke move out. Lock your elbow, don't let the yoke move. Hold it right there, hold it. There you go. Now just reach your thumb up there and trim off that pressure. The airplane didn't move.
Gotcha.
It's a really good way to kind of keep it, else you're going to gain 100 feet every time. Yeah, so it's really good. All right, we'll cut the power in half, maybe about 25%. We're going to let it slow on down. When it gets to the white arc, just below 100, we'll give ourselves 10 knots inside the white arc. Keeping it nice and level for now. We'll go flaps to full. You can do that now. Same technique to keep it from ballooning. Very good.
Right turn 270, runway 18.
Let it slow on down. Pull the power back a little bit to about 15% now. 15% power is the power we normally have on final. We're going to trim it for 80 knots. Let it slow down to 80. A nice easy descent is just fine for this power off stall.
All right, guys. King Air 812 Golf Bravo on the visual 18.
Very good.
King Air 812.
So you want me to keep a descent coming?
It's a nice descent. Yeah, just trimming it for 80. Nice descent. Now we can pull the power back to idle and raise the nose up about 5 to 7 degrees. We're going to bring it to a full stall. 5 to 7. We're going to go right to the full stall. Okay, we're going to hear the red is going to happen with the horn as well.
Stall.
There's the horn. You'll feel the stick shaker.
Stall.
Keep holding it. You feel the buffet.
Stall.
And there's the stall. Full power.
Stall.
Push forward a little bit. Push forward a little more. Turn to the secondary stall. There you go. Good. Then allow it to come back to the horizon. Flaps to 50. Yep, fly back to the horizon, nice and easy. Flaps to 50, perfect. Coming back up again. Stick shaker's great.
Yeah, that's a
really good feature.
That's a lot of warning there.
And that was with ESP off. We could bring the power back to about. Keep the flaps at 50.
Okay.
And we're gonna do one more, maybe the ESP back on. Okay.
Okay.
And we'll do one more just like that. Utilities. We're going to.
Now, does the ESP default to on or off?
Defaults to on. Every time you restart, it comes on, which is a great feature as well.
So you've got to actually go in there to turn it off.
And you have to dig and find it. So here it is. Now we turn it back on again. There it is. It's on. You get the double hashes. There they are.
Okay.
It is an 8. Let's do the same thing like we just did.
Okay.
Power's going to come back to about 50% initially.
18 Whiskey Echo, contact Jack.
We'll let the airplane climb up a little bit
climb
here.
this back up to 25.
As we get set up for this next stall demonstration, I just want to say thanks again to Avemco for sponsoring this channel and everything that I do. They've been with me since the beginning, and they want pilots to stay safe just as much as I do. So whether you own an aircraft or you're thinking about renting one, I highly recommend you check them out. Just scan one of the QR codes on the screen to find out if they can save you some money on your insurance, and it's also a great way to help support this channel.
All right, when you're ready, 50% power, you go to flaps to 50 is already there, which is good. Just bring the power back now to about 15%. Flaps to full, we'll trim it up for 80 again.
Let
Let it descend on down, trimmed at 80 and descent.
2999 medevac Bay Flight 4.
So it'll feel like on final. Now when you're ready, we can go idle power and raise the nose up about 5 degrees nose high or so. There you go, very good. Like you're heading, good. Hold that, and it should.
Stall.
See it feel it pushing you forward now? It's really not wanting you to stall.
Yeah.
It's fighting you. It's making you push that nose down.
Yeah.
So it's keeping the airplane flying. All right. And now, while we're here, we have plenty of altitude. Go pull the power back and just let the airplane slow down on its own, trimmed up. Just let it slow down.
Okay,
and you'll
you want me
see.
to go back to flaps 50 or?
Flaps are at 50. I go ahead and put flaps at 50.
Yep.
Pull the power back. Yep, all the way back to idle. Just go
okay.
to idle. Yep, it's all right.
Yep.
And then keep it trimmed up. There you go. Actually, yeah, just let it. It will actually pitch the nose down to prevent it from stalling on its own as well.
Okay.
Stall.
Just pitching it down there.
Yeah,
Feel
it's
that?
pushing it, yeah.
Good. Now I'm going to actually hit the level button here.
Altitude.
I mean, it's not like a
let go
stick.
here. And it's got to actually keep it in the safe range. It's not going to let the airplane stall with the autopilot on, which is
Okay.
kind of nice as well.
Okay.
You can't
Yeah.
stall it with ESP on. All right, you can kick it off. Autopilot's off. Add a little bit of power. Safe above the ground here. Looking good. And add some more power there at 80%. Go. And we can go flaps to the up position once you get 85.
When you want to drop, okay?
All the way up. There we go. Good. So that's the flying characteristics of safety features. ESP is really good. Stall characteristics are docile, and then lots of stall protections on this airplane.
So would you say that this is one of the safest aircraft that you can fly single pilot on the market today?
I would. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so far, it's just been very impressive. Like everything that I've seen so far.
I mean, if everything goes wrong, you pull caps, you walk away.
Yeah.
And when caps have been pulled within the envelope, it's a 100% survival rate. It's a really impressive stat.
Talk to me about weather capability. Because I know you said, we first thought that was rain, but it was in.
Yeah, so I'll zoom out way up here. You see the weather up in the Appalachians here, and it's very accurate.
So where is it getting that feed from?
It's ADSB and XM.
Okay.
XM. Yep.
Okay.
So.
Because they don't have a weather radar.
Correct. There's no radar in it, but it's accurate as the few minutes delay. So you don't want to navigate through heavy cells that way.
Yeah.
You can see what the big stuff is there.
With the autopilot capabilities, flying IFR, down to minimums, shooting ILS, you've got ILS, right? You've got GPS. So pretty much any approach that there is, this thing can fly. And can you stay autopilot coupled to what altitude?
You can, down to 200 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, 200 feet.
And then does it kick off on its own, or do you have to manually?
No, you have to manually kick it off, and then you manually land. There's no auto land in this one.
Right.
But you can do coupled go arounds with it.
Okay.
So you kick off the autopilot. Actually, not kick off. You can just basically hit the toga button and go around.
Where's that at?
The toga button on the front of the kind of on your if you put your kind of ring finger and hit that button, you'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit it. It'll go TOTO or GAG in this case. Go around for us. It program up to 7-degree pitch attitude and wings level is what it programs.
And if as long as the autopilot's on, you hit that.
That's correct.
But you still have to control the power, so you're going to have to increase the power.
Correct. That's correct. There's no auto throttles on any of the SR models. There's no auto throttles. Only the Vision Jet has that.
Now, how do I get out of go-around mode?
So you have to select the nav. Nav. Select heading. Heading. You can turn the autopilot on if you like. Here.
Okay.
And then hit the FLC. And we can climb up. Yeah, climb up to 2,500 with that. And FLC is set to 119 now. You can slow the speed down a little bit to 105 using this rocker knob. It'll pitch up a little bit.
Now can I get myself in a situation where, like, if I change my vertical rate of climb, it puts me in, I lose too much airspeed, basically.
But it will not let you stall.
It won't let you stall.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We lost a King Air in Afghanistan for that reason. They put the throttle up, the airplane stalled, got into spin, we lost one. So it's a sad situation.
Yeah.
This autopilot is really a great functioning autopilot. It's in many of the airplanes. This is GFC 700.
How do I zoom in?
A little right here. You can zoom in or out.
I gotcha.
So with new students in this, there's so much eye candy that it's hard to get them to actually look outside and fly there.
Well, so that's a good point to bring up. So somebody as a student pilot, would you recommend them starting as a student on this, or still starting with a Cessna and then transitioning to something like this? And if they do start on a Cessna, obviously you have different avionics.
Correct.
Setups that you can do on it. You go with a standard 6-pack with nothing, or you can have a fully, I think there's like $700,000 Cessna 172s now,
Right. So we've had success with both routes. If you can afford it and you're going to fly Cirruses for the next 10 years, start on the Cirrus. So we can just hang a left here, should be good. Just twist the heading knob if you like. If the clients can afford the Cirrus and that's what they're going to end up buying, which is most of the time the case, we found, then we'll just go ahead and start up in the Cirrus, whichever version they want, 6 or 7, and just get them used to the airplane. We've had other students that have had great success learning through the Cessna, getting the private, and jumping right into this for the rental.
Yeah.
And we've had a few clients that have done that, and it worked well for them as well. So it really is their preference. If they like air conditioning and comfort and they can afford it, they'll probably start on this. And it's just, it'll take, probably depends on how fast they learn. It can take 10 to 15 more hours to get your private in this potentially.
Right.
But we've had 18-year-olds get their private in this all on the same lines as anybody else in the Cessna.
Now, for somebody that's just starting off, and this is the first aircraft they've flown, like you said, as a student, do you tend to not teach a lot of the avionics at first, because get them to learn kind of just the fundamentals of flying before you start getting into all the different capabilities?
Yeah, great question. So they have to understand how to change screens and radios.
Sure.
That's the function.
There are some minimums,
Correct. And so we'll plug the airplane up in the hangar on the ground power, and we'll get them in there for 2 or 3 lessons so they kind of get used to putting in a destination, setting up the flight plan, going direct with the autopilot also, and then changing radios is kind of the basic functionality. Then we really try to teach them looking outside. So use this initially for the climb, 5 degrees nose high, and then set the sight picture.
Get used to look at that horizon.
Just based on the outside, looking outside, make sure your wingtips are level, those type things. All the basic stuff you would do, we duplicate in this. And we have the added benefit of having the ESP as well. For most of our early on, we kind of turn off the ESP because we want them to feel the full stall. We don't want them to fight the airplane. We'll turn that off so they can get a good feel for it. We'll do the adverse yaw exercises, all the standard stuff you do in any airplane. We do in this one as well. And Cirrus has a great pilot training program that they have rolled out and developed that incorporates simulators and actual aircraft time. And it's really good.
So someone, they could buy a Cirrus, and they could not do a Cirrus training center, right? You guys are a certified Cirrus training center.
We are platinum certified, correct.
So what's the difference that they get out of that compared to just hiring a Cirrus instructor and doing some training on their own?
So what depends on what their mission is. If they have a Cirrus center they're going to rent from eventually as a Cirrus pilot, they have to have a certificate saying they've gone through a Cirrus course. You can't get that certificate without going to a certified training center. And so Cirrus has fantastic software, and if you buy that software, you have to go to a CTC to be able to find a CTC, Cirrus Training Center, that you can pair up with that walks you through the right way to do things, the safe way to do things. And Chris could probably tell you stories of people who haven't done that, and they've been bitten. Probably a few of your videos you've done on a few people that may have been trained that way. I'm not sure, but I know Chris has a few stories on those types. We have the airline that we fly for has fantastic training videos. And when I saw Cirrus's videos, I was as impressed, or even more so in some areas. It was that quality of videos.
As we got ready to head back to the airfield, the plan was to knock out a few patterns, and then I was going to try to land the aircraft for the first time. But the problem was the pattern was so busy and the tower controller was having trouble keeping track of everyone, so that's why we made the safe decision to let Anthony just do one landing to a full stop. Remember, safety of flight comes first above all else. And even though we didn't get a chance to talk much about the aircraft during the recovery, there was a question that I needed to ask Chris, and also be sure to stick around for my final debrief at the end of the video.
Pattern speeds are fairly simple. Downwind, roughly 100, then 90, and then 80. I'll kind of talk you through it as we do the pattern if you'd like me to.
Sure.
And then as we do a normal pattern, kind of like your student.
As we're heading back, I got a very important question for you, though.
Uh-oh. Go ahead.
If you were to fly this, and then you had a dogfight a 172, what would your technique be?
If I'm dogfighting a 172, this?
1v1, BFM 172. High aspect. You take one circle, two circle.
I'll probably go 2 circle. I go 2 circle with them.
Yeah.
Because I think I can outrate them on the climb as well.
You have a better turn rate?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, better turn rate.
What about your turn radius?
If I'm in a Cessna with the 40 flaps, I can spin the thing around pretty good and point at you. So I think I'm thinking of a Hornet versus a 238 or something, or an Eagle. All right, good stuff. Get this.
Temperature 25, 2.14, altimeter 3000. Visual approaches in use, landing and departing runway 18.
All right, it's time for the final debrief. The Cirrus SR-20 Generation 7 is an incredible aircraft to fly, and I had a lot of fun with Anthony. I'm glad I was able to cross off another aircraft on my list and share this adventure with you. Either way, if you're thinking about buying a Cirrus or if you want to get training in one, I highly recommend checking out PRP Aviation in Ocala, Florida. Now, they didn't sponsor this video, but they're a certified Cirrus training center, and you've got a couple of former fighter pilots like Anthony helping run things in a very structured manner, just like we did in the military, and it was very impressive seeing their operations. I'll put a link to their website in the video description below if you want to find out more, and I also want to say thanks again to Avemco for sponsoring this video.
80 knots, still at about 78 on final, trimmed up, still climbing to the right, so it's going to be a little bit of left rudder, right aileron for the touchdown, trying to keep it on the center line.
Birds above you. Turning right base.
Final checks is good, thanks.
And Global Express 1244, you can go ahead and turn your base to your clear land runway 18.
Clear it back to idle, landing's assured, little left rudder.
Just for confirmation, 28 by
Hold it off, right wheel should touch down first, there it is. Nice, too easy, right?
If you want to find out what it was like to fly in the world's safest personal jet, then be sure to watch this video on the screen. And now we can call this mission complete, and I'll see you on the next HOOVER'S hangar.